Now, coaches, it's off season for you, or it's coming very soon. And I'm going to ask you a question. Where did your season go wrong, coaches? And the reason I can ask that question is because most coaches end up disappointed at the end of each year because only one wins a grand final or wins a competition. Of course, you can look back at your season and be happy with improvement. But the reality is most coaches end up disappointed. Did you leave your players unfit going into the season? Did you not make them fit enough? Did you not make them skilled enough? Did you not spend enough time on a particular combination? Did you not cover for injuries? Did you panic too much if you lost? Did you celebrate too much if you won? This is the time to reflect because we're going to get better this summer in Australia, in the winter in the UK, and obviously wherever you're listening from, because there's about 30 different countries represented on this podcast in terms of listenership. Whichever hemisphere you're in, please delete as appropriate, summer or winter, whatever your off season is. 2025 is going to make you. It's going to make you as a coach if you're listening to this podcast every week, and it's going to make you as a player if you're listening or your coach is telling you what's in here, because I am more than committed to making sure that the community of coaches talk more and more to each other. And hopefully this podcast is one of the central facets of that. For those who are online on rugbyleaguecoach.com.au and with the coaches I work in the coach mentor program, I discuss a pre-season type plan where we line up all the different skills you might need to cover as a coach, both from a core and a unit perspective. By core, I mean individual skills. By unit, I mean skills that are applicable to between 1 and 4 people, sometimes 5 people. That's what I mean by unit skills. And then, of course, you have the team dynamic. So core, unit, team. And you'll hear me talk about that more and more as the weeks go on. And any coaches who work with me regularly on the Coach Mentor program, they know exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about core, unit, and team. And what we do is we put them into a matrix for planning in the pre-season to make sure we cover all topics. So I call it a matrix where literally on a Word document or an Excel document, the coaches write down every skill that they want to cover, every tactic that they want to cover, and we drop it into the pre-season. And there was one coach in particular in the UK who did really well with his team, finished in the top 3 in their first full year in the competition. And his planning was really, really good through this process. And of course, when we talk about planning, we can talk about pre-season right now because it's probably the next thing that's upon you. But of course, in the season, you'll be looking at any given session or any given week as well, both in pre-season and in season, in fact. So what I'm now going to take you through are some of the process that I go through as a coach when it comes to said planning. And I want you to imagine a Tuesday, Thursday setup or a Monday, Wednesday training setup, or maybe even just one session. We have to start with a warm-up, and the first thing I do is plan my warm-ups and I rotate them. So on that matrix that I discussed there, which is a matrix I've always used, so I'll pass it on to the coaches I help. When I'm planning over the course of pre-season or in season or a period of time at any time in the cycle, I tend to plan in cycles of 4 weeks, and I try and teach and cover everything that I can in that 4 weeks. And then quite often I will go back to that 4 weeks later in the year, or I might do different things but cover the same things, if you know what I'm saying. If you, let's say, grip, pass, catch, carry, I might cover it with a game in week 1, but in week 2 I may cover it with a drill. And that allows me to keep an eye on everything that I'm trying to cover. It means I don't teach or coach too much, and it means I can get a lot of repetition in. And in terms of the warm-ups, instead of just doing grip, pass, catch, carry for a warm-up, which is quite common, or laps of the oval, some of you will still be doing. If you are doing, you need to listen to more of these podcasts. You need to look at the YouTube channel. You need to look at the website. You need to join us in this century, guys. There are other things you can do apart from grip, pass, catch, carry. You can do 3v2. You can do the 20 passes drill that you'll find on YouTube. You can do rhythm runs, which are defensive lines. You can play a game. There's games such as Double Double or Find Space that I have on YouTube for you to see and online. There's others, offside touch. In fact, you can play any game, but you just rotate these warm-ups so that the start of training is never the same. Another drill I'm really keen on, though, is one called width pass. So if you don't do anything else today, go to the Rugby League Coach YouTube channel and look for width pass, or just type into the YouTube search engine, width pass Rugby League Coach, and you'll see a drill, because there's probably no better drill for getting your players very warm, get them passing on both sides, get them passing at a range of passes, and actually get some kilometers in their legs, because it's a great cardio workout, and you can throw some jogging and sprinting in there too, particularly to get them warm. Over on a Tuesday and a Thursday breakdown, or a Monday and a Wednesday, I always try to make sure that during that time I cover 50% defense and 50% offense. And if for some reason I don't, I try and keep it in a fortnightly cycle where I do some defense. So it might be a 60-40 split or 70-30. And that's measured by time. So if you're training for an hour and a half, 45 minutes might be dedicated to defense and 45 minutes offense. Or you spread it across the 2 sessions or the 4 sessions in your cycle. Because if you don't do too much defense in 1 week, then all you do is drop it down on your matrix and do a bit more the week after. And if my defense is being looked at in training, I'll make sure my warm-up is based in offense, and some of the core skill things are based on offense. So anything with the ball or decision-making to keep those skills going. Another tip, when you're introducing your skills to your players, bring them in order. So don't get them to do decision-making stuff before you've done grip, pass, catch, carry. Don't get them to play a game unless you've taught them the principles on how you want them to make decisions, or in a defensive line. So do things in order. When you're messaging to your players, always go in order. So if you're talking about defense, go from the tackle first to the ruck control, to the retreat, to the advance. Quite often coaches mix these things up. Sometimes coaches go from attack to defense, defense to attack, and players get mixed up. And of course, on top of all that, when you're thinking about your planning, you've got to think about fitness. You've got to think about conditioning. If you're going to be a games-based conditioner like I am, crank your conditioning up through your games. Start with fitness, so it's essential to your game. So if you had a problem this year, coaches, one of them may have been your players weren't fit enough. And it's still part of the rugby league ecosystem. Players are expecting to get fitter during the pre-season. So you can put in certain demands. So if we're going to do a game-based session, let's say we're playing a small-sided game in training, or 13 versus 13, if you're lucky enough to have access to another team or enough numbers. One of the things you can do is, after a try is scored, get the players to jog back to their kickoff points, or get the team that's conceded to jog to the halfway line, or turn them around immediately so that the team that scored goes behind the sticks on a count of 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and they either do a dropout straight away or start running the ball back out straight away. And if the players don't meet those time limits that you've set, you turn the ball over and give it to the opposition. And that makes them sprint or run hard at least. So that's how you can crank up the conditioning games. You can also get them to get up and down off the ground and play the balls. You can make them sprint in between games and do some traditional coaching, if you like. Of course, don't do any of this without taking the appropriate medical advice, but these are the things we talk about on rugbyleaguecoach.com.au and also on the Coach Mentor program. And a typical session might be 2 or 3 groups doing some skill-based drill type things, or conditioning games for 45 minutes, and then the second 45 minutes will be teams or small-sided games. So your session ends up being real fun.